So before we start, a quick disclaimer. Guys, anyone watching this, please don't try this at your own organization or your home. This kind of attack is like really lethal, and attackers can pretty much own systems with this attack, right? So this is purely for educational purpose. We are helping out the security community to fix issues as soon as they can, right? So we'll start off. Shashi, let's understand what IPv6 is first. Let's give our audience a brief introduction about IPv6, its role in modern networks, and why is it often misunderstood. Shashi, yeah.
So IPv6 is the new generation of IP protocol. It is the successor to our IPv4 protocol. Because of the limitations of IPv4 that we will see in few minutes, IPv6 is introduced, and it is introduced to be future ready. That's why Windows has implemented it, and it is enabled by default. But still we are seeing that most of the administrators are not implementing IPv6 properly, but they are just using IPv4. That's why this IPv6 settings or misconfigurations go unnoticed, and that's why we are going to be showcase an attack which will use this IPv6.
Okay, so now we'll switch to the slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's switch to the slide. So this slide deck I prepared while giving a talk at B-Sides Mumbai. So there as well I gave a talk on IPv6, this IPv6 DNS takeover attack, and got appreciation from the crowd. So I thought that maybe we should also show this to our audience, to our online audience. So yeah, so let's go to the slides and then we can go ahead. So again, let's give a background on IPv6. So IPv6 is the newer version of Internet Protocol. It is the successor to IPv4, and it is mainly developed to overcome the IPv4 limitations. Like IPv4 uses a 32-bit address space, which can cover around 4 billion devices. But as we are growing, lots of devices are coming in, so it will not. So at the address, this address space will be over. So that's why what security researchers has done. So they already did the research a few years back and implemented IPv6. It uses 120-bit IP address space, which is like trillions of devices it can handle. So that's why IPv6 was developed. It also has other advantages. That's why to make it future ready, what Windows has done, they have enabled it on their systems. So when a Windows system comes to us, it is enabled by default. But this adoption of this IPv6 is very slow. What network administrators are doing, they are still using IPv4 to manage their network. Because of the newer capabilities of IPv4 like NAT or port forwarding, they are able to manage IPv4s to configure things. But still they are not going to the IPv6, but they should go to IPv6 and configure it in a proper manner. So that's what IPv6, if configured well, it does wonders for the organization. So next up, so as I said, by default in Windows IPv6 is enabled, but our network administrators are not aware of it. So who is managing the IPv6 on the network? As the answer you see, no one. And if we look at the default Windows setting, we see here that both IPv4 and IPv6 are enabled. But the thing is, IPv6 is the preferred protocol in Windows. So it takes a preference over IPv4 for all the communications.
So a question on this. So let's say a system is configured to have IPv4 and IPv6. So as per what you said was, the communication is going to happen over IPv6 in this case.
In this.
Okay.
And if we go into the details of IPv6 properties, it is set to obtain IPv6 addresses as well as the IPv6 DNS server automatically. But God knows from where it will get, because there is no device or DNS server to manage IPv6 in the network. In most of the environments we go, we don't see it there, but the settings are enabled. So that's where the abuse comes, and we will see how we can exploit it. So these are the default settings. You will also see it on your systems as well. This is like for all the hosts, which can be your Windows systems or your servers or domain controllers. It is enabled by default on all the systems, and in the default properties, it is set to obtain this setting automatically. So before going to the abuse, we have another protocol, which is WPAD protocol. We are combining this WPAD protocol in conjunction with the IPv6 DNS takeover attack, and then once it is combined, we can see what we can do with this. So let's start with this WPAD protocol. So WPAD stands for this Windows Proxy Auto Discovery Protocol. What it does, it allows the Windows systems to obtain proxy server address automatically. That's what this protocol does. So let's see how it works. So we have a diagram here. Let's suppose we have a client and we have a DNS server. So when this client system boots up, it wants to access, it wants to know the address of a proxy server, let's say. Okay. So how will it get this proxy server IP address? So the first thing that it will do, actually in the domain environments, the WPAD server is located at this DNS name, which is WPAD.name of the domain.
Okay, so FQDN, right? So
Yeah,
whatever the
FQDN.
domain, yeah, okay.
So in this scenario, it's wpad.delhi.bank.local, which is just an imaginary bank, not an actual bank. So yeah, so first it will make a IPv6 query looking for the IP address, but since there is no DNS server that is managing IPv6, it will fall back to the IPv4, and hence it will make the lookup request to the DNS server, which has the IPv4 address of the WPAD server. And then if we see the WPAD is located at 10.0.0.8 IP address, so it will send that response to the client. Now client can request the WPAD.dat file, which is WPAD.data file, which stores the proxy server configuration. Then this client system will make a request to this endpoint, which is WPAD/WPAD.dat to the WPAD server, and then the WPAD server will send this file back to the client. And now client has the IP address of the proxy server. Now it can direct its traffic that it wants to reach to the internet. It will divert this traffic to the proxy server, and from proxy server it will go to the internet, and then this process will happen back and forth from via this proxy server.
Okay. So my question is, how often does this happen? Like, is it like a continuous loop?
Yeah, actually, this is a default setting in Windows. So whenever system boots up, it will look for WPAD server. Even if you have not configured it, it will try to look for it. So that is another abuse. So these default settings in Windows are actually misconfigured by default. So that's what we are taking.
And then the next question is, in this case, you assumed that IPv6 is still switched on. So that is why it's falling back to IPv4. Okay.
For all the DNS
perfect.
queries.
Yeah. Okay.
And if we look at this slide, so this is basically why this proxy server is needed, so that administrators can alter all the traffics to go through this proxy server, so that they can put all their IPVS and ID solutions there, and they can monitor the traffic that is going to the internet. So that's why this proxy server is needed in the environments. But in many environments, this proxy server is not present, but still the Windows will look for this setting. So let me start. So right now we are going to the attack phase. So just to the audience, let me again tell them that what is IPv6 DNS takeover attack. So IPv6 is enabled by default on Windows systems, and in its default configuration, it is misconfigured, right? So what attackers can do, they are going to exploit this misconfiguration. Basically, they are going to exploit services like DHCP version 6 or router advertisements, to control to spoof the DNS settings. Once the DNS settings are spoofed, they can just take the once the DNS settings are spoofed, it means that they can control the traffic, and once they can control the traffic, it means they can control the authentication traffic as well. And then what they will do, they will take the authentication and then they will make queries to the domain controller and then take over the domain. So this is in brief what IPv6 DNS takeover attack is, and it we have divided into attack phases. So that's what we are going to see now. So since it's like a very complicated attack, that's why if we look at this way, it will make more sense. So let's start with the attack phase 1, which is IPv6 DNS spoofing. As the name suggests, we are going to spoof the DNS. So we have our client here and we have our attacker machine here. So let's suppose a Windows system boots up in the environment. So first thing it will do, it will try to find out the DNS or IP configuration settings. So for that, it will make DHCP queries. To look for IPv6 configuration setting, it will make a DHCP version 6 queries, and these queries are broadcast in nature. And since administrators have not set up this servers, this DHCP servers which is managing DHCP version 6, and since these queries are broadcast, as an attacker, we came into the picture and say that hey, I know this the query what you are asking for, and what we will do, we will send back a fake response, a spoof response. In the spoof response, we will send fake DNS settings. Basically, this DNS setting we can set it to ourselves. The server, we become the DNS server, and we will assign a fake IP address to the client. That's what it is happening here. And then client will save these settings, and from now on it will think that my DNS 6 server is this one, and now for all the queries, and since these are the preferred queries, IPv6 queries, so all the queries first we will reach out to our DNS server, which is the fake DNS server we have set up, and then we can control the traffic from there. So this is the attack phase 1, which is IPv6 spoofing. We have you have a question?
Yeah. So question is, what if there is an IPv6 DHCP server already configured?
So if there is a DHCP already configured, in those scenarios also we can spoof it, because let's suppose before reaching the DNS server, these are broadcast queries. Before reaching this DHCP server, if it reaches us and if we send back the response, then it will take this response. It will not take the response from
the original server. So basically, you're just creating a rogue server here. Okay, understood. Okay.
The next thing, so this is what IPv6 DNS spoofing is. So these are the steps. Basically, we set up a rogue DHCP server. Then we advertise ourselves as the default DNS server to the devices on the network. And from now on, all the name resolution queries will come to us. And now we can just intercept those queries, change it according to our needs. Okay. Then comes the attack phase 2, where we can relay the credentials. So before that, let's see how we are getting the authentication in the first place. So as now we have become the default DNS server. Now again, when the Windows system boots up, it queried for the DHCP IPv6 settings. Now it will query for the proxy server settings, right? So now it will send a query looking for WPAD server. Since we are controlling the queries, we can say that we are your now WPAD server.
WPAD servers.
And then it will make this request to us looking for the WPAD.dat file. And what we can do, we can just send back our IP address and tell that client that hey, we are now your proxy server. As we can see, the request it is sending back, the first request is looking for this WPAD.dat file. Second request, we are spoofing the proxy server address, which is 10.0.0.128, which is our own IP address. And now this system will think that we are now the proxy server. Now all the traffic it will direct to us. And let's suppose a user now wants to go to google.com or redfox.com. They will just send a query to the our proxy server. And what we can do, we can just send that before you reach this, can you please provide me your authentication? And then client system will do, it will send the authentication of the user back to our attacker machine. Then we can take that authentication and then relay to the domain controller to do nefarious purposes that we will see what we are going to do. And if we get authentication of a very high privilege user, let's suppose a domain admin, in that scenario we are going to take over this domain. That's why this DNS take over a domain. Basically we are taking over the DNS, then we are taking over the domain as well. So, and this attack is very simple to carry out. So that's why be careful while running this attack. I will show you how we are going to run this attack in a way it will not disrupt your network, because literally we are playing with the DNS settings here.
You can basically take down the network, right? Yeah.
So these are the steps. So basically now we are intercepting the IPv6 traffic. This means we can intercept the authentication. In this case we can intercept NTLM authentication as well. And then we can relay this authentication request to domain controller, and then we can do different things. So that we will see. Next up, so I am saying that we can do different things. So these are the things that this attack is going to do for us. So first it will take, let's suppose, a domain controller, a domain admin logged in, and we get the authentication attempt. So what we will do, we will take that authentication attempt and relay it to the domain controller. First we will ask the domain controller to create a user. Then we will tell the domain controller to escalate this user to give them replication rights. So which means that using the replication rights we can perform DCSync attack. So this is the same thing. So when administrator or high privilege accounts logged in, the credentials are relayed to LDAPS service on domain controller. Then we will create the account, give the account replication, get all privileges, and then we can just request everything from the Active Directory environment, and we go for the hashes. So yeah, that is what DCSync attack is. So to the audience which don't know DCSync attack, so let me just say that. So basically in DCSync attack, if a user has a replication all privileges over a domain, then what they can do, they can impersonate a domain controller and ask the other domain controller to send all the changes. That's why the name replication all changes. And what changes we need? We need the hashes that are present in the domain controller, and that's what we will take there. So that is what DCSync attack is. Next up, as I said, I will tell you how to run this attack. So to running these attacks, what we do, the tools that we are going to use, we will run this tool in intervals. So basically we will run this tool for like 3, 4, maximum 5 minutes, and then we will just disable these tools for like an hour or two, so that the network can restore itself, because we are literally destroying the network here. So that's why run it for 5 minutes, then disable it, then wait for an hour, then again run it. This goes on and on until unless we get to the domain admin or high privilege user authentication. So that's how you run this attack. If you like fork, because it has happened for us as well, because one of our consultants forgot about to stop this attack, and then it took down their network, and even we are locked out from
our own system as well. Yeah. It's very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Yeah. Even your domain control settings will be changed, and the domain control will be down.
Yeah, and all services within the company are going to be down, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's why be very careful while running this attack.